r/2XChromosomes. Merpderferpderp says, we are not getting legally married, and I don't understand why it's a big deal. I want to have a wedding, a super small one, 12 peeps maximum, but I don't see the need to make it official with the government. So we've been discussing having a commitment ceremony instead. Our families are pissed, and they make up 8/12 peeps. They don't understand why we won't make it official. They keep saying you're not really married then, or my favorite, it's not real without a marriage license. Bruh, we already have a house joint owned, so we already have something legally tying us together, as if that's the thing holding us together. I don't see the big deal. My aunts have threatened to not attend, since it's not a real wedding. Can someone help me make sense of what the big frickin' deal is? I never would have said anything had I known this would have been the reaction. Edit. We don't and never will have children. If that helps, lol. Edit 2. Thank you everyone for your input. I got some great feedback, and it's nice having confirmation that my debt will remain mine. Crankster says, if marriage had no benefit, then the LGBTQ community wouldn't have fought so hard for it. I know of people who's had their entire homes and nearly everything in it stolen they built with their love partner, but since they died without both of them being married, the partner's family was given rights to everything, and the surviving partner was put out on the street. My worst nightmare is my mother, as next of kin, and my abuser, getting the chance to make medical decisions for me should I end up incapacitated. It weighed heavily in myself getting married, as well as the financial and insurance benefits. It's fine to not want marriage, it's ignorant to say there's no benefit. Thebukflood says, as a queer person who had to, years ago, move to a new state simply to have the right to marry, and who had to make all my graduate school and career decisions in deference to where my marriage would be legal, thank you for saying this. The rights and protections that come with legal marriage are profound and significant. It would make more sense to legally marry and have no ceremony than the reverse. In the case of emergencies, especially health and finance emergencies, it matters so much. Crankster says, my Bill had to go get married in Colorado when it was legal there, then had a ceremony at home, and lived in a state where it was not. It was huge deal, and we celebrated when I was finally legally recognized them as well. They're divorced now, but it's still important that they wanted to get married and pursued it. No one would be bothering if it really were just a piece of paper. I'm though married to a man. I have always been very aware that I might end up like my Bill, scrabbling around to find somewhere to protect me and my wife, just for the hope we would be treated at least legally similar to a het married couple. It's horrifying and a right that needs to be protected. My mother was married to men she didn't love, just to get tax benefits and the right to insurance. This was before the ACA, because marriage was strong enough to keep her alive and on her medication. Likewise, it's awful that she was forced into it, and I'd like to see more options for those that don't want to be married. It can incentivize people to marry just for the legal reasons, which means there's legal support lacking in the result they want. It's a double-edged sword, and the decision to be married or not should not be taken lightly. MS5H says, marriage is a legal contract that brings a suite of protections and benefits. It's one of the reasons folks pushed so hard on SSM, not only from a social acceptance piece, but from a legal protection piece. If you want to officially be the next of kin and make medical decisions, have rights of inheritance, etc., you either have to create a bunch of legal powers of attorney or just get married. Now specifically why others think it's a big deal, I don't know, but there are good reasons for it. CAFM73 says, this is it. A legal marriage affords each partner certain privileges and protections. That's about it. Embarrassed_ad 7013 says, Social Security survivors benefits is kind of a biggie. Without being legally married, partner's estate, in the legal hierarchy, is transferred to the next of kin, which will most likely require probate. Himantalafus1 says, I can't say what your family's problems are, but getting legally married does bring a variety of legal protections and benefits. The precise ones will vary depending on which country you live in, that you don't get through a commitment ceremony. It will depend on your country, but things like next of kin for medical decisions can be impacted. If you don't want to get married, then I would consider speaking to someone with legal experience to make sure you're not going to run into any unexpected problems. Also, make sure you have wills, as there will likely be no automatic inheritance. A friend of mine is a lawyer and has recently sorted out power of attorney paperwork for herself and her partner, as they aren't married, but they want to be able to make medical and financial decisions on each other's behalf, should they be necessary, rather than their respective blood relatives. Player Twontersayar says, I can tell you from family experience, not all doctors and hospitals in the US care about medical power of attorney if there is a blood relative around. I have seen directives totally ignored and people told that the POA was just a suggestion that could be overruled by family. Spouse, on the other hand, always has power. My uncle got married in his 70s, so his spouse could make future medical decisions that would not align with his kids. Dewey says, for me, I got married because of a health scare, and I realized if something happened then the hospital wouldn't give a single flying frick about the fact we'd been together for a decade. They'd be trying to contact our legal relatives to find someone who could make medical decisions. That would be unbelievably awful for so many reasons in our situation. Gotta Let My Fly says, speaking as a doctor in the US that sees this problem a lot, it's a heck of a lot easier to get one simple certificate from the courthouse than it is to jump through all the legal hoops to ensure you truly have full decision-making capacity for someone who isn't your legal spouse. Even if you think the paperwork is solid, there's almost always something you forgot. Lover Miss Sweet Diggy says, I have a relative that had a commitment ceremony and they really just seemed like they wanted cash from everyone, as if they were getting married for real. It seemed kind of cheesy. Beccaroni7 says, can I ask why you are so actively against the legal part of marriage? It was one of the last things on my mind when I was planning my wedding. It was just a thing that came with it. You have said you don't see any benefits to it, although I disagree. There are plenty, but are there disadvantages you're worried about that's preventing you from doing it? It seems like a pretty minute process to be fighting so hard against, so I'm curious as to your reason why. Orange After says, you can do whatever makes you feel best, just look into the legal ramifications of not being legally married. Financially, medically, if you share assets, children, etc. r/2XChromosomes. Hannah Cree says, older male relative used to walk in on me changing or showering. I know this question is out of Reddit's pay grade, but I just need opinions. Basically what the title says, I had an older male relative walk in on me changing/showering a few times, and it continued even after I said it made me uncomfortable. I never had a lock on my door in my home growing up either. He has been good to me in a lot of other ways, like financially, but I can't shake these memories and can't help feeling a strong ick about it now as an adult. How do I handle this relationship moving forward? Am I making a big deal of nothing and holding a grudge? Editing to add more context, I'm an adult now and live far away. He also has never physically done anything. I0100111010 says, I have nieces that I helped raise from infancy, and I've never done that. There was the period of changing their diapers and using the toilet. There was the period of having to bathe them or help them do things including change clothes when they were that young. But once they were capable of doing these things independently, that was the end of it. Part of any child maturing is developing an expectation of privacy, and that includes from the adults caring for them. It sounds like he deprived you of that, and that is what constitutes abuse. I would never walk in on the kids changing or showering unless they would have screamed for me in an emergency. The point being that no, it is not normal. American_prophecy says. Am I making a big deal of nothing and holding a grudge? No. He sounds, I'm gross. And, how do I handle this relationship moving forward? 1. Stay safe. 2. Talk to people you trust about it. 3. Try and keep others safe from him. 4. Don't stop being suspicious of him. Predators like him operate in plausible deniability. Blocks says. One thing to note is that being good to you in other ways, especially financially, is a common method abusers use to keep kids from questioning or speaking up about their predatory actions. Bravadle3 says. You are right, you are right. I had an uncle, he's dead now thank goodness. He impregnated his stepdaughter. He always used to leer at me, and one day, because my brilliant mother decided it was okay for us to be around him, he slapped me on the ass while I was wet in a bathing suit. You are right. SR1701 says. What he did was wrong. I could understand if it was a one-time thing by accident, although it's hard to imagine he accidentally walked into the bathroom with the door closed and could hear the shower running. I would try to find out if he's walked in on other young relatives. If so, the police might need to get involved. Side note, is he carrying a cell phone when this happens? Wouldn't be hard to catch a photo. Lorelickety says. My stepdad did the same. And my mom would say bullshit when I would tell her about it. He would walk in while I was showering/bathing, pooping/peeing, changing my clothes, or as I was about to step inside the shower. I wasn't allowed to lock any doors growing up. And the door was never allowed closed, had to leave it cracked open a tad. I'm still grossed out by it, and it was half my life ago. He started doing it as soon as the boobs appeared. I felt so nasty as he was staring at me in normal clothes, like he was undressing me with his eyes. My mom would proclaim that what happened to me was nothing compared to her experienced as a kid from a cousin. So to this day she won't even validate my own experience because he never touched me. It's sad. I'm sorry you had the same experiences. I just refuse to let my brain to remember them. Stormius Maximus says. I used to have to change right behind my door so I could close it really fast when opened because my stunt dad would basically knock at the same time as opening the door. He would never wait for an acknowledgement, and when I complained he'd say, but I knocked didn't I? Apatax says. My mother did the same with me. I still don't understand why. She also did this with my brother. He was soon fed up with her behavior. It took me a lot longer to start using the lock and deal with her disappointment. Medusa Melly says. Warn your family, it wasn't just you, I'd wager. Too Fat Mike says. I have lived with my wife and our 2 daughters. Through the years I've walked in on them when they're in the bathroom many of times. We live in a small house with 1 bathroom. I've never gotten past the crack of the door and then notice that they're in there. I'm not saying your Ike isn't valid, but he could be coming from a home where it was hard to have the privacy a person could want. I've been in the shower when someone needs to go, and they just do what they need to and move on. I've done that to them too. To me it's just part of having a single bathroom. Your case may be way different. He could've been a peeper. You'll have to replay situations and decide for yourself if it was weird or if there's an explanation. Nurjai88 says. I have 2 kids. I walked in on one of them once. It was traumatizing for both sides and I always knock now. r/2XChromosomes. Portions 4 Nurse 2045 says. Well, it's my turn I guess. My husband cheated. When I say that, I mean he lied, and then lied, and then lied some more over the past few years. I'm not the kind of person who puts up with stuff like this, and quite frankly, I'm less upset with his lies than I'm with myself for staying this long. We went to counseling last summer, and it was okay. Things seemed better until I found out last week they weren't. And I just don't have any bandwidth anymore to work on fixing it. So a week ago I packed my stuff and left. If I'm thankful for anything this week, it's that I have a safe place to go and a lot of options. So what's the problem? Well, his parents who never visit are here for the holiday. So yesterday I went home, saw him for the first time, ignored him, and made food and entertained, and then my parents came over, and we all sat around, and had a grand old time. All the while my husband and I are sitting there with the knowledge that sometime in the next week or month, or whatever, we're going to have to tell everyone that we are separated. Here's the thing, he hate drama. And I don't want to be the one to tell anyone because I don't want to be the one to tell them why. I want him to have to do that. Why should I have to deal with the questions and the tears and the hugs? I'm so sorry. I just want to disappear and make him have to tell everyone why. Honestly, that's why I'm doing this whole performative thing the next 3 days. I just don't want to have to deal with the fallout. I feel like that's his shit to deal with, not mine. The one friend I told said it's nice for you not to blow his shit up, and I guess that's a little part of it. I'm not trying to make his life miserable. I know I could if I wanted to, but it seems like so much emotional work on my end if I just announce we are separated and walk out. It just seems easier to get through this weekend and deal with things later than to have a big blow up. I guess I'm venting a bit, not looking for advice. I'm not going to change my mind about how I'm handling the next few days, and I'm not going to change my mind about leaving. I just feel like I needed some random internet friends to give me a little virtual hug. Thank you in advance. Humble Briefs says, I often see women on this sub with cheating husbands, who then also expect her to do all the emotional work afterwards. Telling family, even his, and friends, and explaining his actions, etc. I understand completely why you don't want to deal with any of it. It's not your mess to explain. He made the mess, and he gets to lay in it. I'm sorry for everything that's happened, but look forward to the weight of all of this dropping from your shoulders. In a few months, your bandwidth will go back up, and you can put it towards yourself. Lots of love and support. Say 513 says, it will be over before you know it, and your life will be infinitely better in the years to come. Hang in there. Conch, Aculus says, I don't really have any advice, but I want to give you a virtual hug, Opus. I admire your strength, really. I wish I didn't cry and showed my ex how hurt I was with his lies. I wish I had your courage. Keep your head high, you deserve someone who treats you with respect. Thank you for sharing your story. Rinjefloa says, absolutely handle your relationship the way you see fit. That said, if at the appropriate time, he tells everyone about the separation/divorce, he can tell them anything. You could spend years, literal years, trying to get people to believe your side of the story. After all, you know that he's a lying liar. He might decide that he wants to be the good guy, victim of you leaving him. Uterus trying to kill him says, wow, sorry to hear that. You are doing your best to make the most of a spectacularly shitty situation, and I respect you so much for it. Sending lots of hugs. L_Bandita says, waiting for the shit to hit the fan is worse than the drama itself. Do it on your own terms, of course, but know you waiting will not change an outcome. There still will be questions. Nefarious Away 358 says, you might hate drama, but sometimes you have to embrace it. Spinneret says, I'm going through the same thing, but I'm dealing with some mental health issues from a hard year in general. Take care of yourself and keep moving forward. That's all we can do. Winter Wind says, virtual hugs for sure, good luck. Jahidingan says, I'm going through something very similar and it sucks. But despite how shitty I feel right now, I know we are both going to have a better future. Without some lying, trifling, no sex game having, dickhead in it. Well, some of that may be just me. But still, we're gonna be okay. And he's gonna always be a turd, so don't feel like you need to protect his ego anymore. He's doing fine on his own, frick, eyeing himself up. Let his true self shine. Golden_Mandela says, I'm so sorry. And I have one piece of advice. If you find yourself in a situation where you must tell someone about it, it can be helpful to ask for the response you want. You can say, we are getting a divorce because he cheated and lied about it for years. You need to know what is happening, but I don't have the bandwidth to talk about it beyond telling you the fact. I can't deal with sympathy, or with questions, or with any kind of processing about this at all. If you need to talk about it, go talk to my ex. If you tell people exactly what you want from them, you still might not get what you want, but you are more likely to. It is worth a try. And I'm really sorry you have to deal with this at all. IB Amazon says, alright, just for clarity cause the post isn't clear. Did he cheat, or did he just lie about something or some things? Those are two very different things. I get you lie when you cheat, but you don't always cheat when you lie. Know what I mean? As for telling everyone, seems like the obvious solution is he tells his family and you tell yours. Seems like it would be weird for you to tell his family and him to tell yours. Hell, doing it together would be acceptable too, but just tell your own families individually. Then it goes back to two separate families. r/2XChromosomes. In Exile 1234 says, I used to think I hated Christmas, turns out I love it. Now that I'm single. I grew up with severely abusive and narcissistic parents, one with bipolar where the manic came out right before Christmas, making each one a terrifying game of what is she going to do this year. So Christmas has always been a bit triggering, although with hilarious stories to tell, now that I'm older. Then serial monogamy of stressful holidays, mostly trying to please a man, if I'm to be really honest, and being made to feel like a failure, with no effort shown back to me. I used to dread shopping the day after Halloween. Whoever said here that going through a divorce is hell, being divorced is awesome. Thank you, this replays in my head during the toughest moments. The last 2 years have been hell, but I finally allowed myself to grieve over failed relationships, etc. I did a lot of walking and letting myself ugly cry on long hikes. A lot of long hours in the gym throwing down working out, several decades of rage. I didn't intend for it to happen, but I also started working through my childhood trauma. I started apologizing and crying for not middle-aged me, but 16-year-old me, 25-year-old me, and so on. I said none of that should have happened, I'm sorry it did, and I'll cry for you. I still have a long way to go, but now I'm an endurance hiker. I just dropped a chunk of money on gear and equipment that will take me through the winter. No man around for me having to justify spending my own money on myself. That's my Christmas present to myself. It's only November and I've been to every craft market and Christmas festival within a 4-hour driving radius of my place, usually combined with hiking. I talk to people on trails, at craft markets, I eat stupid amounts of homemade baked goods, then use the fuel to power up the side of a cape to look out on the ocean. I've made my own door wreath, spent stupid amounts of money at craft stores, decorated at work, anything Christmas themed around town, I'm there. I got excited to see a guy driving a Christmas tree jammed into the back of his Corolla with his hazards on going down the highway. Normally I'd be annoyed he's doing 40 in an 80 zone, but I was just happy. I'm spending Christmas with friends, spoiling my niece, and continuing what I'm doing. Single, not dating, probably never will. I don't want the sword of Damocles in the form of a man-child sucking every inch of, frick, I enjoy from my life sitting at home with his extra days off expecting to be catered to because he worked so hard all year. Funny how that always happens, even though I've been the primary breadwinner in every relationship. I can't imagine even entertaining the idea of allowing even the possibility of jeopardizing my peace. And essay. Joy. For the first time in my, ein life with a MF man. So yeah, I love Christmas now. I have a feeling I'm going to love Valentine's as well, but unfortunately more in a schadenfreude sense, but I'll take my victories as they come. Much love to us lonely single sisters out there. I sip a marshmallow hot chocolate to your health and continued happiness. Elemental J says, I love this. Even when some folks get out of terrible relationships, the best they find is a sense of sad relief. It's awesome to hear from someone who finds real joy and happiness. It's also great to hear from someone who gets joy from the holiday season. It melts away a tiny bit of my own cynicism about Christmas. Thank you for sharing your story. AuntyPink007 says, I have a big huge smile on my face right now for you. After a horrible Thanksgiving, I think I'm ready to stop spending time with my family as a group. Thinking about Christmas with my own stocking and movies and football and knitting and all the crustless pie I care to eat sounds so much better than spending time and money on a fruit salad I don't even really care for and listening to my cousin's kids scream. This is my third one being single again, and I still delight in keeping things where I think they should go and having them stay there until I move them. Even if I would meet someone agreeable, I'm not living with them unless the house is big enough that I've got my own wing or at least the other half of the duplex or something. It's Sal Krebs says, I love this. I felt the same way after dropping my NAS ex-husband. I always felt mostly negative about Christmas between my childhood issues and his drama, but once I got really into crafting I can have a beautiful space full of cheerful light on my own terms. It's so fun. Divorce was the thing that set me free. Cheers, happy holidays, and I hope you find some awesome lichens on your next hike. Illustrious Concept 3 says, thank you. Beautiful post full of joy. It's making me look forward to festivities. I hope you have beautiful holidays each and every year. Tiny_Galaxies says, hell yeah, another divorced lady here who worked through my grief out in the woods. Got myself a best doggo to join me too, she's such a pal. It's definitely not a linear process, I'll think I'm past it all, and then a strong wave of grief will hit. I have some triggers that are still very fresh, just 1 year divorced, that I'm sure will soften with time. It's awesome to be myself, but also painful to realize how far from that I had gotten. Axiom06 says, I'm happy for you, because you are forging your own path. Hiking can be very healing, and I hope you find your happiness. Mom died last year. One of the first things I did was go for a hike. I found myself out and about and around nature. It really helped keep my head clear and feet on the ground. Danivel says, I could be friends with you. Hikes would have to be slow though asthma and covered X3 have done big number on my lungs. Hoinvated Thesepiapa says, sort of the same. Holidays when I was a kid were incredibly stressful. Lots of people, too much going on. My mom had shades of Joan Crawford about Christmas and would force all of the kids to participate in things she wanted us to do, like mandatory singing Christmas carols. We were going to be a magazine-worthy normal family if we wanted to or not. I liked the tree and at least usually got one cool thing as a present. The rest of it, I tried to shut myself in my room or make an excuse to go outside to do something. It really put me off holidays. Then I got married, and my now ex was very demanding about some of the same must-have textbook holiday things with ever-increasing demands each year and zero helping me do it. When the kids were older I finally revolted and refused to do anything but make a meal Christmas Day and get the kids presents. It caused lots of anger and stomping off. I absolutely dreaded holidays between this and trying to navigate my family. It felt like months of being on the verge of a breakdown and nobody cared. I'm happily divorced. This year I bought a weird little tree for the dining table that has oddball decorations myself and the kid that lives at home have been finding that we are amused by. We had low-key Thanksgiving with SO. I'm liking these kinds of holidays much better than the old ones, and I feel much more in the mood to just enjoy people doing winter things to make winter less of a drag. Lozano says, I just realized the same thing this year and I love this for us. I feel so free after deciding that there are probably no men out there that would add net positives to my life, and it's so liberating. I can stop searching for the impossible. I don't really need it. And I can enjoy holidays without feeling like something is missing. I have peace and I have joy. Redrose_812 says, I love this for you. I also used to think I hated Christmas because my childhood abuser, then stepfather, robbed the joy out of every single holiday, birthday, and special occasion because obviously he couldn't ever go a day without being a perfectionist, tyrannical, impossible to please, abusive asshole. Turned out I love all those things without having someone like that around to ruin them. Harmonicascentistas says, I'm thrilled for you and had a similar experience. For 20 plus years, I convinced myself that I hated Christmas, Valentine's Day, and all holidays. I told myself, and everyone else, I simply didn't believe in them, celebrating them was hallmark commercialism, etc. Turns out, I was covering for my chronic disappointment of every holiday spent with a life-sucking abyss of a husband who stole every ounce of joy from every occasion. This year, you bet your ass I put the Christmas tree up as the Thanksgiving turkey roasted in the oven. I have evergreen garland all over the mantle, stockings are hung for each cat. I shamelessly splurge on Valentine's Day nonsense with my current partner. I handed out dozens of bags of candy on Halloween. Life is short, and I'm now taking every opportunity to celebrate the time I have with people I actually like. r/2XChromosomes. Southern_pop4934 says, ladies, does anyone else deal with condescending men on dating apps? I don't know if part of me is being too sensitive, but I feel like I've been coming across a lot of condescending men on dating apps lately. Most recently, I was talking to a guy who was telling me about his hobbies. I told him his hobbies sounded neat, and he proceeded to ask me about mine. I told him I like to write and wrote a novel that I'm now working on publishing. He, who isn't a writer, then proceeded to send me a list of publishers and explained to me that to get published, I'll need to submit my manuscript to publishers for consideration. He also explained to me that Amazon has a self-publishing service and started explaining what self-publishing is and how it works. I'm finding that this happens a lot on dating apps. I start talking about one of my hobbies or something I know about, and the guy starts explaining basic facts to me and how to do things around the said topic, like they assume I don't know much about it and has more informed. Am I too sensitive about this, or reading too much into this? Has anyone else experienced this? I don't want to write off a potentially good guy for this, but I find it a turn off when a guy I'm messaging immediately jumps into teaching mode about something I've already expressed that I'm informed in. I want to find a relationship where we treat each other as. Laura 27282 says, my last semester of college a guy tried to tell me about Google Scholar. Typically when someone gives me advice that isn't useful I politely thank them. It's the thought that counts after all. But I couldn't even entertain that one. Women do it too. I work in a hospital lab. Recently a nurse tried to tell me about how the blood tubes have a particular order of draw. Thanks. I've only worked here 10 years. Turbulent_pin_1583 says, you're not being too sensitive. It's a stupid thing men do to try and appear intelligent or helpful. However, it can often come off as belittling and dismissive instead, because they don't think about what they're saying or typing. Most guys will respond well with a clap back or interjection to show your own knowledge. If they respond badly, then that's a failing on them. No_serve_540 says, it's projecting on how much they are a loser. Also says, the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus explains how women traditionally talk as a way to vent their emotions and to seek validation from their conversation partner or partners, whereas men talk as a way to problem solve. If you mentioned you were working on something, the guy's most likely just trying to solve your problem. Oh, this beautiful and smart woman that I'm talking to on an app has run into a problem. Let me Google that and try to help her. It's probably coming from a good place. The guy most likely doesn't have a high enough emotional intelligence to analyze the situation and just listen to you. Enough_cat_6915 says, I sell various home goods on Facebook Marketplace, and let me tell you, the insults and condescension from men of all ages never fails to disgust me. Instant block. If I feel that something is too expensive on Marketplace, I just continue to scroll. I would never dream of messaging someone with an insult. I never get this nonsense from women. Gwurch says, no, you're not too sensitive. You know what I do when that happens? Unmatch and forget about the mansplainer. You should try it too. Cone10 says, your condescension radar is working just fine. The question is, what can be done about it? There is no reason to hold your tongue. You can convey it firmly but pleasantly. Oh yes, I have researched the publishing process in considerable detail. If he backs off, he's worth a second chance. Otherwise, block. Unfortunately, the being treated as equal bit is not the default. You have to set the boundaries early, especially in the beginning. Forgot_to_grow up says, ugh, this guy sounds like a boring idiot. False identification says, what's funny is I over-explain things by default. Men, women, children, or animals. Doesn't matter who. That's just how I am. What you described could just be him trying to be helpful. Give him a playful thanks for mansplaining that for me. If he gets defensive, move on. Tiger Tex says, if you didn't ask for help in the situation, but he continued to give his 2 cents, that is condescending. Not sure if bad intentions though, because I have met PPL that just don't know how to find how stuff works, who don't ask for help but just complain. But if you said anything, like I don't know how to get my writing out there, and then he gave his options, then he just tried to help. TBH, in most cases men, and sometimes women too, are a tad bit too elated, and if you give them a situation they try to find a problem and then a solution, even if there is no problem to begin with, which can come off as condescending. At the end of the day, you decide what PPL stick in your life, and if you don't like how someone behaves, it's your right and duty to say Bobby. Same rule applies to you too though. Personally, I wouldn't be bothered if anyone tries to explain something to me. I usually say I know, no worries if I know, or don't worry, I'll figure it out if I don't know, but don't want their input on the matter. Say 513 says, I think the real question is, does anyone not? Insufferable. I quit forever this week. r/2XChromosomes. Duck Ballas Rolling says, how to deal with a rude lecturer. Am I being unreasonable? I'm looking for advice on how to deal with my lecturer. She seems to love humiliating me or scolding me. She nitpicks, rolls her eyes and huffs. A bit of background, my uni course is not in my first language. When I speak I have an accent. I'm training to teach that language. She has been vocal about her disapproval of this. If I ask her any questions about the meaning of a text, she rolls her eyes and gives looks to the other students. My laptop broke in her class 2 weeks ago, and I have desperately trying to get it repaired. I call the repair shop every day, but it's still isn't ready. I cannot afford a new laptop. She berates me for this in front of the class. Although a laptop is not a requirement, there are other students have no laptop, There is one male student who she cuts others off to ask for his opinion. If he is late, she waits for his arrival to begin. She does not wait for others. I'm not sure how to deal with these behaviors. I'd be grateful for any advice and support. Sakurfawn Warabut says, it certainly seems like she's discriminating against you for not being a native speaker. Can you bring this up with her department head? Dark Balasraling says, thank you for your response and for validating me. I think this might be the only way. She hasn't ever listened to me before, so I don't see why she would now. At the moment I'm just documenting her behavior. Leek says, these are all way past a bit of rudeness. These are serious job performance issues that open the school up to real consequences for discrimination. Document it all and find out who is the person at your school who advocates for students, not her boss, but the ombuds or dean of students. These aren't behaviors you deal with. These are behaviors her employer lets her know are stupid and actionable. Drittinulg says, what country are you in? Norwegian universities have anonymous reporting for this type of inappropriate behavior. Is that possible for you? Otherwise I suggest taking it to the department. Coconut Mocha says, please document everything. This is beyond being rude. It seems like she's discriminating against you for not being a native English speaker, and it's BS. The fact that she would berate you over a laptop is weird too. Given that it's late November, it seems that she has been treating you like this all semester, and I think it's time to go to her department head and have a conversation. I'm so sorry you are dealing with this. I just want you to know that your commitment to learning is admirable. From my experience, the people who ask questions in class tend to care and are paying attention. Her lack of professionalism is not a reflection of you or what kind of student you are. r/2XChromosomes. Spirited _ pin 3333 says, I hate the girl math trend. I'm not usually on that side of the internet, but was forwarded a few videos, infiltrated my algorithm, and I can't believe they are making terrible financial habits a trend. I'm a finance gal who grew up in a very money savvy family. We started off with almost nothing and now can spend freely, but since it was so drilled in me to budget everything, spend less but spend well and so on, I try to make my knowledge more accessible. I have started a blog about financial education, got interviewed a couple times for it. It's the only advocacy work I do, and I cannot believe we are making the actual emotional biases behind wasting money a trend. We are talking about it and that's good. But we are progressing in the wrong direction. This is like those other trends like the shopping therapy one, self-care, but much worse, and I don't get why only the girl math ones talk about money. I've seen some iterations with time and activities, but so many women are squeezing themselves into a very OMG I can't spend money, I need my BF to do it for me role that it gets very concerning. I'm worried it will affect the public's perception of women in finance and make it much worse than it already is. Edit. Turns out it's a joke. Kinda confusing though. Generous Cake says, it's a joke, not a trend. It's not encouraging the behavior, it's critiquing it. You're missing the point. Lady_Nia says, it's satire and reclaiming to a point, trying to make fun of the stereotype, just like Gelbus. Leisha says, I stay away from that kind of content, but I do find it ironic. In my work I talk to lots of people who've made bad financial decisions in the past, and they're usually men. To be clear, that's okay. Lots of people make bad decisions, especially when they're young, and a lot of people are never really taught how to manage money and have to figure it out on their own through trial and error. But it's definitely not a girl thing. Not a day. RK says, I hate the whole bimbo things that seems to be happening. Jadam 785 says, it was more emo about object permanence in regard to money. Like, in girl math terms, if I return an object, I'm earning money. Am I literally making money? No, but I have money in my bag that I didn't before. I'm 17 and don't pay taxes, but I know my mum feels similarly about tax returns. It says returns, so I'm assuming you're just getting money back that you previously paid, but it feels like extra money. I don't know if I explained that very well, but yeah. Girl math started as a fun way to joke about money permanence and excusing spending, not relying on men. Men actually started making fun of girl math online, and there was a new trend called boy math. It's pretty funny. Some I've seen. Boy math is wanting a prenup, but making less than 40k. Boy math is calling a woman a gold digger when all you have is 3 socks to your name. Boy math is being more loyal to your barber than your wife. Boy math is how 5 feet 10 measures 6. Boy math is thinking the answer to "did you finish?" orgasm is yes. It's basically a way to call men out on their behavior as a response to them perverting the girl math trend. Aussie_potato says, what is girl math? Trashmouth says, oh, it's just a TikTok trend / meme, not a real thing. Paquette Spaghettius says, I swear, this sub is getting worse about understanding jokes. What's next? Girl dinner is infantilizing? Does nobody know how to understand tone anymore? Crimson says, geez, old people hating whatever joke and trends the young generation came up with and not understanding it. What a classic. Piludska says, I'm not sure how I feel about the girl math or women in STEM jokes. Sometimes they rub me the wrong way, but I DK. Definitely following to see what others think and feel though. r/2XChromosomes. Abazabless says, I don't know how to help my neighbor. Please give advice. I just moved to the downtown area of Midwest City. I got an apartment that's part of a large complex. So far it's been pretty quiet, so no complaints there. Until today. I heard yelling, scuffling around, and a woman whimpering. I won't get into details of what was said, but it was bad. I have been in an abusive relationship before, and those sounds brought me right back to those times. I immediately put on a pair of pants and ran to find where it was coming from. I remember in the 2 years I was trapped with my ex that no one ever knocked on the door to check on me. It was a very intensely alone feeling, and it amplified the feelings of my own worthlessness. I could not live with myself if I did nothing. I also didn't want to call the cops, because the few times cops were called for me, I got the shit beat out of me. Even worse afterwards. I was really just hoping I could get her to come with me and help her from there. I don't know what I was expecting to do from there, but at least I could give her a place to stay and a hand to hold as she's getting out. I don't know, my mind was going all sorts of places and I didn't really have a plan in mind. I just needed to do something. I couldn't figure out where it was coming from, so I knocked on a few doors. No one answered except this nice older lady that said she didn't hear anything. I think it was below me, because as soon as I frantically started getting dressed all the noise stopped. Maybe he heard me coming. Now I'm sitting in my apartment, freaking out because I have no idea what to do. Did I make it worse? Maybe he'll be even more angry because I came and knocked on the door. What can I even do now? I don't want her to be forced to take the brunt of his anger if he's even more pissed because one of his neighbors hurt him. But I absolutely cannot just let it slide. How do I figure out where it's coming from? If I could just figure out who it is, then maybe I could approach her if I see her without him. But how? Wait to hear her getting the shit kicked out of her again. No, there's gotta be some other way. I'm planning on leaving cookies to a few neighbors. I was already planning on this anyways, and maybe leaving my number? I don't know what to do. I've been thinking about this for hours and my brain is just running wild right now. Sorry for the rambling. This brought up a lot, and I was having a bit of a panic attack and I needed to get it off my chest. Thanks for reading, advice. Trivian Acid says, I think the cookies idea is good. Bake a ton of them, make up little bags, and go around to all of your nearby neighbors. Introduce yourself and say you made cookies for the building. Make up something about loving baking, but not wanting to eat it all yourself. Then, while you go around, meet the people. You might make a new friend and you might meet the woman you believe was being abused. You'll probably also get a good idea of who your neighbors are. Be willing to chat with people. I bet there is some gossip monger in the building who will tell you everybody's business. That person would be a helpful source of information. And that person will also gladly tell you all about everybody as soon as they meet you. Please just be careful about giving out too much information about yourself. You don't want that abusive a-hole finding out there is a single woman in the building. I_upvotapugs says, maybe also make up some cards with your phone number, apartment number and or email address. I would only give those out to people you actually talk to for your own safety. But basically leaving a way to get a hold of you and making it clear that you're there to help if they need anything. While you do this, if you can wear something that identifies you as a feminist, LGBTQ+, etc., it could help you seem more trustworthy. I'm just thinking of, if a neighbor showed up at my door, how would I know that this is someone who could help me with something private? Anticrepuscular_A says, I had this happen the other day. I called the police because it has to be on record and I honestly wasn't sure if she was dying or something. I wasn't sure which neighbor till I went outside and saw the guy through the window throwing shit around in the apartment, so that was lucky. I'm not sure what else you can do aside from knocking and weeding out which apartments it's not. That way next time it happens you can quickly go to the ones it could be. Just be careful. Majwafinal says, hey, it sounds like a tough situation. First off, don't beat yourself up for not knowing how to handle this shit. It's tough and you're doing your best. Maybe just try leaving that note with your number on it as a little Hail Mary. Might be something she can use later if things get worse. Lunar Pixius says, first op, please don't beat yourself up over not knowing what to do. You did more than most, and I think that alone is something to be proud of. I've been in similar situations with my neighbors, and unfortunately due to my PTSD I end up freezing completely, so I really admire you for taking action. For me, in my situation, I figured out that it was my downstairs neighbors by putting my ear to the floor. I had to call the police a few times because I genuinely thought that he'd killed her. She screamed, then there was banging around and stuff being thrown, and I didn't hear her voice after that, only his yelling, but I tried to avoid it as much as I could and started logging everything I heard in a note on my phone. That way, if she ever wanted to press charges, I'd be a witness with timestamps, dates and details of incidents and altercations. It took me over a year to be able to actually do something to get to talk to her. I was terrified of him, and because of my freeze. Response. It had escalated a lot during that period and the arguing would last entire days. I started listening for doors being closed and looked out the window to see when he left. I logged the times he'd be out of the apartment and when she left the apartment. After a week or so I knew his work schedule, and I found out that she was alone at home and didn't work, so I had a solid time gap where I knew he wouldn't be there to interfere. I rang the doorbell many days, but she never opened the door. I even brought my cat with me so she'd see her through the peephole in case that could help, but to no avail. I didn't want to risk him finding out that I'd been there, so I couldn't leave a note either. I wish my story ended happily and conclusively, but unfortunately all I could do was keep the log and hope she'd open the door one day. I wish I'd done more, but there's not too much you can do. They moved away a few months after I tried. making contact, and I have no idea what happened to her. I hope she got out, and that she's doing okay, and I hope he's locked away where he belongs, so he can never hurt anyone else again. I think my point in sharing this is that you can only do so much, and that it's not a personal failure or reflection of you if you can't fix or help the situation. All you can do is try. It's also not a situation that you should feel obligated to interfere with at the cost of your own safety, so please stay safe. Lastly, I want you to know that people like you are why I'm still here in this world. People who care, even just a little bit, that means more than anything. I hope you're okay, and I hope you'll be able to make contact with her, and that she'll be okay too. Eater, I did give the log to the police as well when they showed up after I had called. I never got called in as a witness or anything, so I doubt much was done with it. r/2XChromosomes. Chakaonion says, why are men so comfortable displaying anger in the getting to know you phase, but hate when you do? I've dated a handful of men after my divorce thinking that maybe it's just the guys in my culture that suck. I'm South Asian, so if you know you know lol, but all of them, just like my ex-husband, are so quick to display their anger so early in the talking stages. But I hold back during this talking stage because we're still getting to know each other, and IDK it just feels weird to be so spicy early on. When they do something that's annoying. When I say something calmly about their mistreatment of me, they don't like it and paint me as emotional. They go after your character, label you as is instead of saying it in a nicer way, like hey, I'm experiencing this as is this what you mean? Or at least that's how I'd say it, because I'm a mental health therapist and I know people's intentions in communication get lost based on the receiver's biases/experiences and or the communicator not communicating well. But no, instead, they feel some type of way, think their feelings are facts, and then they label you as is. Is my situation unique because I'm dating Pan-Asian dudes, or has anyone else experienced this? And Ladinibiru says, I wouldn't say it's based on location/ethnicity. Men tend to drop their mask earlier these days for some reason. They are ticking time bombs and naturally get angry at their partner when said partner has a reaction to their tantrum. I'm in the us, and even though I personally don't date and don't want to, I see it with other couples. My friends have boyfriends who literally scream like toddlers over the littlest things. These are grown men. And they choose to act out like spoiled children. It's incredibly frustrating because it becomes a problem to even try to communicate in a healthy manner without them freaking out. American_prophecy says, toxic masculinity? It's frick it up, but for a lot of guys anger is sort of assertive, which is sort of alpha. And, or at least that's how I'd say it, because I'm a mental health therapist and I know people's intentions in communication get lost based on the receiver's biases/experiences and or the communicator not communicating well. I'm not a therapist, but it must be weird for you to date. You probably see a lot more warning behaviors than others, but you probably also see a lot more reasonable explanations for them too. Bazount says, I would immediately drop any man that flashed angry at me. I don't do things that justify being yelled at, threatened, or harmed. I put up with so much shit before. When I met my husband, one thing he said early on was that he hated raised voices, and frankly, so do I. So while we absolutely do disagree, and while each of us absolutely do screw up at times, it's never something serious, and we just talk it out. Married 13 years, together 16. If we women make any mistake, it's sticking around too long with someone who isn't what we really want. Don't date potential. He shows you his ugly face early and over nothing. Block, delete, move on. Best of luck. r/2XChromosomes. Mango Pep says, I hate having periods, and I hate how lightly they are taken. Every single time. I dread the first day of my period. Excruciating pain that keeps me awake, makes me roll around on the bathtub and bedroom floor. I'm close to crying. It feels like someone is squeezing my already sore uterus or stabbing a knife through it. I can't sit because it hurts. If I walk around and pace my room back and forth, it hurts. I lie down, it hurts. Take a warm bath, it still hurts. Use muscle pain relieving cream or medication, it still hurts. Bleed through a heavy pad in less than an hour. And it's like this for an entire day or two. I can't wait to get a hysterectomy sometime. I can't even get this checked out because I have no health insurance. Back when I did have health insurance, my doctors were always male, so they always dismissed my issues and said I needed mental help whenever I talked about my pain. Or the usual, it's normal. How is this normal? I had to leave my job once when I just got there because my period cramps kicked in. To this day, I can't even work and I'm unemployed because of this, along with other health issues holding me back, and no accommodations would be done for me. Back when I was in school, I had to squirm around in my seat because of how painful this is, and I couldn't just get to stay home because my period wasn't a good excuse to miss school. I hate this so much. Tattoo Sprout says, I could have written this. No, it isn't normal, and I remember being blown off and accused of exaggerating. It's real and I believe you. The day I had my hysterectomy was the best day of my life. Well, the recovery was a nightmare, but once I healed, my life changed dramatically. No more pain. They also found massive endometriosis in my abdomen stuck to everything. The surgery took a few extra hours to get it all. I wish this was taken more seriously because it's horrible to deal with and f's up your life. Melodic_fart_ says, if the pain and/or bleeding is interfering with your life, it's not normal and you should not have to deal with it. Something is likely going on, medically speaking. If you tell a doctor it's interfering with doing your daily activities and they still dismiss you, time for a new doctor. I'm sorry you are going through this. I hope you find a doctor who takes you and gets you the right treatment. 3. Lulu_42 says, I'm in the same boat. And I've had full checkups. There's nothing wrong with me, except it's terribly painful, lasts a long time, and I bleed more than anyone I've ever met. I don't like the idea of surgery, even outpatient. I don't react well to birth control. So I'm just here, trying to make menopause happen faster. Side note, always night pads, the purple pack. They're amazing. And the only ones that work, even though it's like wearing a diaper. Casmania says, this is me now. I got an IUD several months ago, and my periods have never been worse. I'm in so much pain for 9 or 10 days every month. About a month ago I went in for an IUD check, and to talk about everything that's been going on because it's not been normal, I was finally told of a method that worked and the why behind it, so I figured I'd share in case it helps anyone. I've always heard from doctors to just take ibuprofen for period pain. However, taking it after the cramps start is just playing catch up and is not nearly as effective. Instead, she told me to take 200 mg ibuprofen every 6 hours starting 3 days before your period and throughout the week of, and stay on top of it. I set alarms in my phone. The reason why is because ibuprofen specifically blocks prostaglandin, which is the hormone produced that causes cramps. This is what I needed to effectively treat my pain. Of course everyone is different but I had to share because I had a much better experience last week. Avaladbert83 says, it's frustrating how periods can be brushed off when they're really a big deal. Finding support and understanding is crucial. Outscomic Spencer 4653 says, as others have said, this is not normal. Your period should not debilitate your life like this. It could easily be something like endo, fibroids, or a multitude of other things. I'm sorry you've been dismissed by doctors previously. Realize there are ones out there that want to help you and won't just blow you off. They aren't always the easiest to find, but I hope you do find one and can get back on the road to better health. Herefordtha Sangha says, I'm reading this while laying in bed with a TENS machine on, a heat pad, and my pain pills. I'm one of the lucky ones who has fainted from the pain, and some months it's so bad I end up screaming on the bathroom floor, even after taking pain pills. I'm in my 30s now, and it took until a couple of years ago for a doctor to take me seriously. I'm sorry you're going through this. Fluffy Pomegranate 59 says, you probably have endometriosis. Your experience is not normal. Yeehaw Girl says, currently on week 4 of my period. Kept forgetting to refill my birth control, so went around a month without it. By the time I started it again, it was when I was supposed to be having a period. So my body is just very confused. Excruciating cramps every day. It's exhausting. I have endometriosis. My pain has always been bad enough that I've missed school, cancelled plans. And this month is bringing all that shame back. I keep cancelling appointments, and I feel like that high school girl with too many absences. Like I'm lazy. Weak. Not trying hard enough. But the pain is so bad. Just sitting around is agony. I'm literally of no use when I'm like this. I cannot focus on conversations. I don't have the energy to be productive. Hell, just writing this comment is hard anyway. I completely understand how you feel. It really is so isolating. As if the physical pain isn't enough. You have to hear people telling you stop making excuses while you can barely move. I've had my brother say other girls deal with it fine, you just don't know anything about real pain, while I was on the floor sobbing. It's horrible. Absolutely horrible. And I'm really worried about how I'm going to handle it on a job. You're not alone in this. I'm so sorry no one has taken you seriously. Your pain is real. It's not normal. You're not exaggerating. And you are so strong for carrying on, despite your experiences also, with your level of pain. I think you may have endometriosis. Highly recommend checking out the endo sub. It really helped me to recognize my symptoms, to get a diagnosis/treatment. Wishing you all the best. Sing48 says, that does not sound normal. Personally, I have been blessed and have never experienced very intense pain while on my period, and the stories I hear from fellow women about their periods outright frighten me in their severity. As I have gotten older, I have noticed symptoms such as nausea worsening, but the pain has always been quite minimal. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.